Kong Taeho pushed his cleaning cart down the long marble hallway. The wheels squeaked softly in the quiet night. He was 34 years old and worked as a janitor at the Galactic Council's Earth Embassy in New Geneva. It was not a glamorous job, but it paid the bills. More importantly, it paid for his younger sister, Jiwoo's medical treatments. The embassy was enormous. Aliens from hundreds of different worlds came here every day to discuss politics, trade deals, and galactic laws. Taeho had seen them all during his 5 years working the night shift. There were tall blueskins and Tari with flowing silver hair, insect-like Dravik with multiple arms and compound eyes, massive Krovar warriors in heavy armor, floating energy beings that left trails of light wherever they moved. None of them ever looked at him. To them, he was invisible, just another human doing menial work, while important beings made important decisions. Taeho didn't mind. Being invisible meant being safe. It meant he could do his job, collect his paycheck, and go home without complications. Tonight felt different somehow. Taeho couldn't explain it, but something in the air seemed charged with possibility. He shook his head at his own imagination and continued mopping the floors. The embassy had strict rules about where janitors could go. Most areas required special clearance. But Taeho had been given access to almost everywhere because he was reliable and quiet. The aliens trusted him to clean their spaces without causing problems or stealing secrets. Tonight, his assignment included the Vault of Lost Dynasties. This was Taeho's favorite room to clean, even though it was also the saddest. The vault was located 3 levels underground. It was essentially a museum filled with artifacts from civilizations that no longer existed. Dead empires, extinct species, entire worlds reduced to a few objects in glass cases. Taeho took the service elevator down. The doors opened to reveal a massive chamber with a ceiling that stretched up into darkness. Pedestals lined the walls, each one holding a relic from some forgotten corner of the galaxy. Security sensors blinked red in the corners, watching everything. He began his routine. First, dust the pedestals, then mop the floor. Finally, clean the glass cases without touching the artifacts inside. The aliens were very particular about this last rule. Some of these objects were dangerous. Others were priceless. All of them were supposedly inactive and harmless, but protocols existed for a reason. Taeho worked his way through the vault methodically. He paused occasionally to read the plaques describing each artifact. There was a crown made of crystallized starlight from the Veltharian Ascendancy, a weapon that had destroyed an entire moon during the Krovar expansion, a child's toy from a species that had died out 10,000 years ago. The most interesting artifact sat on a pedestal near the center of the vault. It was called the Helix of Tharkazon. The plaque said it was 3,000 years old, a relic from an empire that once ruled a third of the galaxy. The Tharkazon had been powerful beyond imagination, but something had destroyed them completely. Every member of their species had been hunted down and killed during something called the Convergence Wars. The helix itself was beautiful. It looked like a spiral of dark crystal shot through with veins of silver light. About the size of a football, it sat motionless on its pedestal. According to the plaque, scientists had tested it thousands of times trying to make it work. Nothing ever happened. It was just a dead piece of history now. Taeho pushed his cart closer to clean around the pedestal. He was tired. It was 3 a.m, and he still had 2 more floors to clean before his shift ended at 6. He wasn't paying attention as carefully as he should have been. The cart's wheel caught on an uneven floor tile. The sudden jerk made his mop bucket tip sideways. Water started spilling out. Taeho lunged forward to catch the bucket before it soaked everything. His hand shot out and hit something solid, the helix of the Tharkazon. It rolled off its pedestal, falling toward the floor. Taeho's reflexes took over. He dropped to his knees and caught the artifact with both hands just before it hit the ground. For a moment, he felt relieved. He hadn't broken a priceless relic. He wouldn't lose his job. Then the artifact began to glow. Light exploded from the crystal. Pure white brilliance flooded the entire vault. Taeho tried to drop the helix, but it stuck to his hands like it was glued there. The light grew brighter and brighter until he had to close his eyes. Strange symbols appeared in the air around him. They looked like geometric patterns, shapes that hurt to look at because they seemed to exist in more dimensions than his eyes could process. The symbols spun faster and faster, creating a whirlwind of light and sound. Tejo felt something changing inside him. It was like his blood had caught fire. His DNA was being read, analyzed, confirmed. Information poured into his mind. Memories that weren't his own, knowledge of technologies he couldn't possibly understand, images of worlds he had never seen. The vault security alarms began screaming. Every screen in the entire embassy flickered and went dark. Then they all displayed the same message in a language Tejo somehow understood, even though he had never seen it before. The message was simple and terrifying. Bloodline confirmed. Air detected. THAR Kazon protocols activated. Tejo knelt on the floor, the glowing artifact pulsing in his hands like a living heart. His quiet, invisible life had just ended. He didn't know it yet, but he had just inherited something that would change not just his life, but the fate of the entire galaxy. Heavy footsteps echoed through the vault as security forces rushed toward him. Tejo looked down at the artifact, then up at the alien symbols floating in the air. What had he done? Tejo sat on the medical bed, feeling confused and frightened. 3 days had passed since he touched the helix, and nothing made sense anymore. The artifact had changed shape. It was no longer a large crystal spiral. Now it hung against his chest as a small pendant, warm against his skin. He had tried to remove it dozens of times, but it wouldn't come off. It was part of him now. Dr. Valara stood nearby, studying holographic screens filled with data Tejo couldn't understand. She was a Zentari, one of the tall, blue-skinned aliens with silver hair that floated as if underwater. Her amber eyes kept moving between the screens and Tejo's face. She looked fascinated and worried at the same time. "Your DNA is remarkable," she said finally, turning to face him. "I've run the tests 5 times to be sure. The results don't change." "What does that mean?" Tejo asked. His voice sounded tired. He hadn't slept well in days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw strange dreams filled with alien worlds and battles from thousands of years ago. Valara pulled up a new hologram. It showed a complex strand of genetic code with certain sections highlighted in bright gold. These markers here, they're Tharkazon genetic sequences. They've been hidden in your DNA for 8 generations, completely dormant and invisible to normal scans until the helix activated them. 8 generations? That's impossible. My family has been on Earth for hundreds of years. We're not aliens. You're not aliens, Valara agreed, but your ancestors were modified. The Tharkazon were masters of genetic engineering. Before their empire fell, they initiated something called the Seed Protocol. They scattered their royal bloodline across hundreds of primitive worlds, weaving their genetic markers into native populations. Tejo touched the pendant. It pulsed warmly under his fingers. Why would they do that? Insurance, Valara said quietly. The Tharkazon knew they were losing the war, so they had pieces of themselves in species like humans, hoping that someday, somehow, their legacy would survive. You're proof that it worked. Before Tejo could respond, the door slid open. Ambassador Kelrin entered looking grim. The tall Zentari diplomat had been kind to Tejo over the years, always saying good morning when their paths crossed. Now he looked at Tejo with something close to fear. "We have a situation," Kelrin said. "News of what happened has spread across the entire galaxy. Every major power knows about you now." "That's bad," Tejo asked, though he already knew the answer. "It's catastrophic." Kelrin activated a wall screen, showing news broadcasts from dozens of alien networks. Tejo saw his own face repeated over and over, with text in languages he couldn't read. The Krovar Dominion has filed a formal protest. They claim any Tharkazon technology should be seized for public safety. The merchant guilds are offering billions of credits for access to you. An eternal flame priesthood is declaring you their prophesied savior. Tejo felt dizzy. "I just want to go home. I want to see my sister." "That's not possible," Kelrin said gently. "Look." The screen changed to show the embassy exterior. Thousands of beings crowded the streets outside. Some held signs in various languages. Others knelt in prayer. Security barriers kept them back, But the crowd kept growing. There have been 3 assassination attempts already, Kelrin continued. Mercenaries hired by factions that see you as a threat. You're the most valuable person in the galaxy right now, Teho, and the most dangerous. Velara spoke up. There's something else. The artifact has been sending signals. We traced them to the Karen system. That was the old Darkazon homeworld. What kind of signals? Teho asked. Activation codes. The pendant is communicating with something on Karen 7. We believe it's the Prime Vault, the central repository of all Darkazon knowledge and technology. Every expedition that's tried to open it over the last 3,000 years has failed. But now it's responding to you. Kelrin shook his head. It's too dangerous. If we go to Karen 7, every power in the galaxy will follow us. It will start a war. Teho stood up from the bed. He was tired of being confused and frightened. If he was going to be hunted and worshipped and feared, he at least wanted to understand why. Then let them follow. If this legacy is mine, I need to know what it means. I need to understand what the Darkazon wanted. You're not a soldier, Kelrin protested. You're a janitor. I was a janitor, Teho corrected. I don't know what I am now, but hiding here won't give me answers. Velara smiled slightly. I'll prepare a research ship. We can leave within the hour. That night, Teho made a call from a secure terminal. His sister Jiwoo's face appeared on the screen. She looked pale and tired, but she smiled when she saw him. The nurses won't tell me what's happening, Jiwoo said, but I saw the news. They're calling you a prince from space. It's very dramatic. Teho laughed despite everything. It's complicated. How are you feeling? The treatments are working. The doctors say I might be able to go home soon. Her smile faded. Teho, are you in danger? Maybe. Probably. I don't know yet. He touched the pendant through his shirt. Jiwoo, if I do this, if I go find out what this legacy really means, everything will change. Our lives will never be normal again. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke with the same determination that had helped her survive years of illness. You spent your whole life mopping floors so I could afford medicine. You've been invisible so I could be seen by doctors. Maybe it's time the galaxy saw you for once. Maybe it's time things changed. Tears stung Teho's eyes. I'm scared. I know, but you're also brave. You just didn't know it yet. She smiled. Go find your answers, big brother. I'll be here when you get back. The call ended. Teho sat in the darkness for a long time, feeling the pendant pulse against his chest like a second heartbeat. Somewhere across the galaxy, on a dead world called Karen 7, ancient technology was waking up after 3,000 years of sleep. It was waiting for him. Velara found him an hour later. The ship is ready. We have a small crew, people I trust, but Teho, you should know that at least 20 other ships will follow us. Maybe more. Everyone wants to see what happens when a Darkazon heir returns to the homeworld. Let them watch, Teho said, standing. Maybe they'll learn something. As they walked to the docking bay, Teho looked back at the embassy one last time. Somewhere in the vault below, his old cleaning cart sat abandoned. That life was over now. Whatever came next would be harder, stranger, and infinitely more dangerous. But Jiwoo was right. It was time for things to change. And somehow, impossibly, Teho was the one who would change them. The pendant pulsed warmly as if agreeing with his thoughts. Deep in the ancient Darkazon programming, something recognized as acceptance. The heir had been found. The protocols were active. And across the galaxy, the first pieces of a much larger and more dangerous puzzle were beginning to move. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 100 different worlds sat in curved rows that rose up toward a domed ceiling. Usually, the chamber was a place of careful diplomacy and quiet discussions. Today, it was complete chaos. Teho stood at the center speaking platform, the pendant glowing softly against his chest. Behind him, a massive holographic screen displayed the message he had found in the Prime Vault on Karen 7. Emperor Kael'dar's final warning played on repeat, showing the ancient ruler's desperate face as he spoke of the Devourers. Lies! shouted the Crovar general, his armored bulk rising from his seat. Ancient superstition meant to frighten us. This human wants to control us with fairy tales. The prophecy is real, countered the eternal flame priestess, her crystalline body shimmering with emotion. The heir has returned. We must follow him. Ambassador Kelrin raised his hands, trying to restore order. Please, everyone, we must examine the evidence calmly before. Before what? Counselor Ma interrupted sharply. She was Earth's representative, a stern woman in her 50s who had never liked Tejo much. Before we acknowledge that a janitor now controls technology that could destroy us all, this changes everything for Earth's position in the galaxy. Tejo waited for the shouting to die down. He had learned something important during his journey. To Karen, 7. Sometimes the best way to get people to listen was to stay quiet and let them wear themselves out. Finally, the noise faded to angry murmurs. Tejo spoke clearly and calmly. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be an heir to anything, but I've access to the Archazon archives. I've seen their records. The Devourers are real and they're already here. He changed the holographic display. New data appeared, sensor readings, colony reports, and energy signatures. These are from the last 2 months. 7 colonies on the Galactic Rim have gone silent. No distress calls. No survivors. Just silence. Ships sent to investigate found nothing but dead worlds. The chamber grew quieter as representatives studied the data. The energy patterns matched Devourer signatures from the Darkazon records. Tejo continued. These attacks aren't random raids or pirates. This is the beginning of something bigger. According to the archives, we have maybe 5 years before the main force arrives. A small alien with gray skin and large eyes stood up. Even if we believe you, what can we do? The Darkazon were far more advanced than us, and they still lost. They lost because they fought alone, Tejo said. They hoarded their technology and treated other species as inferior. They refused to work together until it was too late. I won't make that mistake. He took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide everything. I'm offering to share the Darkazon defensive technology with anyone who wants it. Free. No conditions. Shields, weapons, early warning systems. Anything that can help protect against the Devourers. The chamber exploded with noise again. Some representatives cheered. Others shouted protests. The Crovar general's face turned an angry shade of purple. You can't just give away that power, he roared. Tejo met his gaze steadily. The pendant pulsed, and suddenly every holographic display in the chamber flickered. Ancient Darkazon symbols appeared on the screens, responding to his emotional state. The casual display of power made several representatives step back nervously. I can, Tejo said quietly, and I will. This isn't about power or politics. It's about survival. The Devourers don't care which faction you belong to or what treaties you've signed. They'll consume all of us equally. The Crovar general stood slowly. His hand moved toward his weapon. And if we refuse, if we decide to take this technology by force. For a moment, nobody breathed. Tejo felt the pendant grow warm. He knew he could activate the vault's defenses with a thought. He could probably destroy the Crovar fleet before they even launched. But that would make him exactly what he didn't want to be, a tyrant using ancient power to dominate others. You can try, Tejo said simply, but I hope you don't. Because every minute we spend fighting each other is a minute the Devourers get closer. And when they arrive, they won't care who won our petty arguments. The general stared at him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he sat back down. We will discuss this, he muttered. The council session ended in confusion. Some representatives wanted to accept Tejo's offer immediately. Others demanded more proof. A few wanted him arrested for possessing dangerous technology. Nobody could agree on anything. Dr. Villara found Tejo afterward in a quiet observation room. He stood looking out at the stars, exhausted from the political battle. That could have gone better, she said gently. It could have gone worse, Tejo replied. At least nobody actually shot at me. Give them time. The day is young. She smiled, trying to lighten his mood. But seriously, Tejo, what you offered in there, sharing everything freely, the Darkazon would never have done that. I know. That's why they lost. He turned to face her. Velara, I need to ask you something. In the archives, I found references to other bloodline carriers. The Tharkazon didn't just seed Earth. They scattered their genetics across dozens of worlds. Are there others like me out there? Velara's expression grew thoughtful. She pulled out a small device and displayed a star map. Glowing points appeared scattered across the galaxy. The pendant's activation sent out a signal. These locations have responded with matching genetic markers. Some are human, some are other species. All of them carry dormant Tharkazon genes. Teho felt hope rising in his chest. How many? 47 confirmed so far. The number keeps growing as more markers activate. Then we find them. We bring them together. Teho studied the map. If the Tharkazon wanted sentinels to protect the galaxy, we'll build an army of them, not to conquer, but to defend. Over the next few weeks, they began arriving. Lee Dune was a cargo pilot from Earth whose ship suddenly started responding to her thoughts. Karn was a farmer from the Veltharian colonies whose tools activated ancient protocols when he touched them. Jiho Park was a scientist whose experiments accidentally awakened Tharkazon technology. Each one had been living an ordinary life until Teho touched the helix. Each one now carried the genetic legacy of an empire. They gathered on Karen 7, these unlikely heirs. Teho met with them in the great hall of the ancient capital. 47 beings from different worlds and species, all connected by blood that was 3,000 years old. I'm not your king, Teho told them. I won't pretend to be. The Tharkazon tried that, and it destroyed them. But we can be something better. We can be the protectors they hope we become. A young woman with dark hair crossed her arms skeptically. Protect against what? Monsters from ancient history? As if the universe wanted to answer a question, alarms began screaming across the planet. Warning lights flashed red. A voice announced through speakers that unknown vessels had entered the system. Everyone rushed to the observation platforms. In the sky above Karen 7, 3 ships appeared. But these weren't normal ships. They were organic things, twisted and wrong, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself. 6 months had passed since the battle at Karen 7. Teho walked through the halls of the Sentinel Academy, watching students train with weapons that glowed in response to their genetic commands. The academy had been built in the ruins of an ancient Tharkazon military school. Now it housed 200 people from 40 different species, all carrying the hidden bloodline. Lee Dune walked beside him, reviewing reports on a datapad. She had become his second in command, her natural leadership skills enhanced by the tactical memories flowing through her Tharkazon genes. We received 17 more distress calls this week, she said. Colonies on the outer rim going silent. The pattern is moving closer to the core systems. How fast are we responding? Teho asked. Getting faster. The new ships help. She gestured toward the windows overlooking the shipyards. Dozens of vessels were under construction, combining ancient Tharkazon designs with modern technology. But we can't be everywhere at once. Teho nodded grimly. What about the council fleets? Have they agreed to work with us? About half. The Krovar still refuse. They don't want to share command with what they call lesser species. Dune's frustration was clear. Same old politics, even with extinction coming. Before Teho could respond, Dr. Velara appeared, looking worried. We have a problem. Come with me. She led them to the medical wing. Inside a containment field, a young man thrashed violently. His body glowed with uncontrolled energy, and his screams echoed to the sterile room. Medical staff monitored him from a safe distance, their instruments beeping frantically. His name is Rojin Wu, Velara explained quietly. He's 20 years old. The Tharkazon genetic activation is overwhelming him. His body can't handle the integration properly. Teho felt his chest tighten. How many others like him? 12 cases so far. Some have stabilized on their own. 3 have. Velara's voice broke. The power killed them, Teho. Their bodies just couldn't adapt fast enough. Teho approached the containment field. Jin Wu's eyes found his briefly, filled with pain and terror. Help me, the young man gasped. Please, it hurts. Without thinking, Taeho placed his hand against the energy barrier. The pendant at his chest immediately blazed with light. He felt the chaotic energy inside Jinwoo's body, the genetic information tearing the young man apart from within. It was like watching someone drown in power they couldn't control. Taeho closed his eyes and focused. His own genetic integration had been stable from the start. The pendant acted as a regulator, helping his body accept the Tharkazon legacy smoothly. He tried to extend that stability to Jinwoo, using the pendant as a bridge between them. Slowly, carefully, he showed Jinwoo's body how to properly channel the power. The glowing dimmed. The thrashing stopped. Jinwoo collapsed unconscious, but breathing normally. Velara stared in amazement. You stabilize him. How? I don't know, Taeho admitted, exhausted. I just felt what needed to happen. Can we do this for the others? If you personally stabilize every unstable heir, yes. But that's not sustainable long term. Then we find another way. I won't lose anyone else to this power. That evening, assassins struck again. A team of mercenaries infiltrated the academy using stolen security codes. They carried weapons designed specifically to disrupt genetic bonds. They nearly reached Taeho's quarters before Daeun's security forces stopped them. Under interrogation, the mercenaries revealed their employers, a group of wealthy corporations who saw the Sentinel movement as a threat to their profits and power. They fear you more than they fear the Devourers, Ambassador Kelrin said when he arrived to investigate. You're offering technology that could make them obsolete. Then they're idiots, Taeho said coldly. There won't be any corporations left if the Devourers win. I agree, but desperate people do desperate things. The assassination attempt had consequences. The Krovar Dominion used it as justification to demand control of all Tharkazon weapons. When Taeho refused, they sent their fleet to Karen 7. Massive warships filled the sky, their weapons pointed at the academy. Taeho stood on the command platform watching them arrive. Daeun waited for orders, her hand hovering over the defense controls. They're powering weapons, she reported. What do we do? Taeho could destroy the Krovar fleet easily. The Vault's ancient weapons were millennia ahead of anything the Dominion possessed. But that would make him a tyrant, using power to dominate through force. Everything he'd promised not to become. Open a communication channel, he said quietly. The Krovar general's face appeared on screen, his expression hard and determined. Surrender the Vault technology, or we will take it by force. No, Taeho said simply, but I'll offer you something better. Join us. Really join us, not as servants, but as equals. The Devourers don't care about your dominion or your pride. They'll kill you the same as everyone else. We don't need charity from a human janitor. It's not charity. It's survival. Taeho transmitted battle data from recent Devourer attacks. 3 colonies destroyed this week. 2 of them were Krovar worlds. Your people are dying while you point guns at allies. The general's expression flickered with something that might have been doubt. If we join your coalition, the Krovar maintain military independence. Agreed. You command your own forces. But when the Devourers come, we fight together as one. 3 tense minutes passed. Finally, the Krovar fleet powered down their weapons. We will discuss terms, the general said grudgingly before cutting the connection. Taeho nearly collapsed with relief. Velara steadied him. That was incredibly risky. Everything we're doing is risky. He looked at her tired face. How long until the main Devourer force arrives? Based on current data, maybe 2 years. Possibly less. Then we're running out of time. That night, long-range sensors detected something terrifying. A Devourer vessel appeared at the galaxy's edge, larger than any ship ever built by any known species. It moved slowly through space, and everywhere it passed, entire solar systems went dark and silent. In his quarters, Taeho accessed deeper levels of the Vault's archives, searching desperately for information about how to truly defeat the Devourers. What he found chilled him to the bone. Emperor Kael'thar's final personal logs explained the horrible truth. The Tharkazon had never found a way to permanently destroy the Devourers. They could only drive them back, scatter them, force them to retreat for a few thousand years. We bought time, the The dead Emperor's voice echoed from a recording. That is all we could do. Perhaps future generations will find what we couldn't, a way to end them forever. But remember this warning. The Devourers were once like us. They were a civilization that chose consumption over cooperation. They chose to become monsters. Don't let fear turn you into them. Don't let power corrupt you as it corrupted us. Teho understood then. The Tharkazon hadn't just failed militarily. They'd failed morally. They'd become isolationists, hoarding power, seeing themselves as superior. That attitude had doomed them as much as the Devourers had. The final year before the Devourers arrived passed in a blur of constant work. Teho barely slept. The Sentinel Coalition had grown enormous, now including 70% of all galactic civilization. Even the factions that refused to officially join still provided resources and intelligence. Everyone understood that survival meant cooperation. Teho stood before the full Galactic Council for what might be the last time. His appearance had changed over the past year. He looked older, more tired, but also stronger. The pendant no longer glowed constantly. It had become part of him, as natural as breathing. The Devourer's main fleet will arrive within 3 weeks, he announced to the Silent Chamber. We've fortified 200 worlds. Every defensive platform has combined Tharkazon technology with modern systems. We've trained 10,000 pilots and soldiers from 50 different species. But honestly, it still might not be enough. Council Ma leaned forward. Then what more can we do? Stop thinking like separate nations and start thinking like one galaxy. Teho said bluntly, we can't fight as individual fleets anymore. We need complete coordination. One unified command structure. One strategy. One chance. The Krovar general, who had become an unlikely ally over the past year, spoke up. And after? If we survive this, what happens to your power? What happens to the coalition? This was the question Teho had been expecting. Everyone wanted to know if he planned to become a permanent ruler. After we win, if we win, the vault gets dismantled. All technology gets distributed equally among member species. The Sentinel Academy becomes a training ground for everyone, not just genetic heirs. And he paused. I go back to being just Teho, if there's still a galaxy left to live in. The chamber fell completely silent. No one had expected him to give up power voluntarily. You would just walk away? A small alien representative asked in disbelief. Yes, because that's what makes us different from the Tharkazon. They wanted to rule. I just want people to survive. Dr. Villara had spent the entire year working on a secret weapon. She found Teho in his quarters late one night, looking exhausted but excited. I finished it, she said, pulling up holographic blueprints. It's not elegant, and it won't destroy them permanently, but it will work. The weapon was called a quantum disruptor. It didn't kill Devourer ships. It broke down the connections between them, disrupting the hive intelligence that coordinated their attacks. The Tharkazon were close to figuring this out, Villara explained. They just ran out of time. I finished what they started. Teho studied the plans carefully. How did you solve it? She smiled sadly. I stopped thinking like the Tharkazon. They tried to overpower the Devourers with brute force. I look for weaknesses instead. Sometimes the smartest solution isn't the most powerful one. 3 weeks later, the Devourers arrived. It happened on a Tuesday morning, though time zones made that designation meaningless across the galaxy. Long-range sensors detected them first. Thousands of organic ships emerging from hyperspace at the galactic rim. The largest vessel defied description. It was bigger than moons, a twisted nightmare of biomechanical horror that seemed to absorb all light around it. This was the Devourer Queen, the central intelligence coordinating the entire swarm. A message broadcast across all frequencies, in every known language. Consume, evolve, ascend. Teho sat in the command chair of the flagship Karen's Legacy. Around him, officers from dozens of species worked at their stations. Lee Duun commanded the fighter squadrons. Karn coordinated planetary defenses. Jiho Park analyzed enemy movements in real time. All coalition forces moved to battle positions. Teho ordered calmly. Across 100 star systems, ships powered up, Humans fought alongside Krovar warriors. Zentari scientists worked with Dravik engineers. Species that have been enemies for centuries now protected each other's backs. The battle began at the rim world of Veltora. Coalition forces met the Devourer vanguard with concentrated fire. The Archazon weapons punched through regenerating hulls. Modern missiles exploited weaknesses that ancient technology had found. They're adapting faster than we predicted. Dune reported from her fighter. They learn from every engagement. Then we change tactics constantly. Tejo responded. No patterns. No predictability. Keep them guessing. For 3 days, the battle raged across 12 star systems. Entire worlds were evacuated hours before Devourer ground forces arrived. Ships sacrificed themselves to buy time for civilians to escape. Heroes emerged from every species. On the 4th day, the Coalition fleet surrounded the Devourer Queen. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Tejo activated the genetic link, connecting all the heirs across the fleet. Suddenly, 200 enhanced beings moved as one coordinated force. Their ships danced through space with impossible precision, guided by 3,000-year-old instincts. Prepare the quantum disruptor, Tejo ordered. Fire on my mark. Velara's weapon discharged, a wave of energy that rippled across space. It didn't destroy anything. Instead, it severed the quantum connections linking every Devourer ship to their queen. For the first time in recorded history, the Devourers showed something like panic. All forces, concentrate fire on the queen, Tejo commanded. Every weapon in the Coalition fleet fired simultaneously. Energy beams, missiles, plasma bursts, and weapons whose names didn't translate, all converging on a massive bioship. The Devourer Queen's shields collapsed. Its hull cracked open. As it died, it sent one final message that echoed across every radio frequency. We will return. Then it exploded in a flash of light visible from a dozen systems. Without their queen, the remaining Devourers fell into chaos. Some fled into deep space. Others fought mindlessly until destroyed. Within a week, the threat was neutralized, not destroyed forever. Tejo knew they would return eventually, as they always had, but scattered and broken, driven back for another 1,000 years at least. The galaxy had bought time. 6 months after the battle, Tejo stood in the new Geneva embassy where everything had started. The Vault of Lost Dynasties had been converted into a museum. The helix of the Archazon sat on its pedestal again, now just a dormant crystal. His old cleaning cart sat in a corner, preserved as a historical artifact. Velara joined him, taking his hand, feeling nostalgic. Sometimes I miss being invisible, he admitted. Too late for that. She gestured to windows. The city below had monuments to the battle. Children were being named Tejo across 40 species. His face appeared on currency. The council confirmed everything, Velara said. Technology distribution starts next month. The academy is now open to all species, and you're officially relieved of command. Just like that. Just like that. You're free, Tejo. He pulled her closer. I want to visit Jiwoo. She keeps asking when her boring brother is coming home. How is she? Completely cured. The Archazon medical technology fixed everything. She's training as a pilot now. He smiled. Apparently heroism runs in the family. They walked through the embassy together. Staff members nodded respectfully but didn't bow or worship.